or you're there with a religious faith-based group, or if you're there with Reagan and I and Jeannie on a team that's doing livestock rescue, and your go bag has considerably different things in it. The reality is you've got to kind of decide what your go bag is. And I want to talk to you about form and function and comfort. Most of us eventually develop several sizes of go bags. And the big thing is form, just like this. When you walk into a scene, sometimes it's easier to get through the door if you have emergency gear with some identifier on it. Now, I've seen times I've walked right through a staging area and went into an instant command center and talked to people, and they would stop senators and my director of extension at the gate because they didn't look like they fit. So that's the form part. If you're going to an event, make sure that you fit that event, and think about that in your bag. So depending on your role, the function is you got to have stuff that you need. There's no point in going to a wildfire response coordination effort, even if you're back at an incident command center or DOC, if you don't have at least some fire gear in case they send you up to the front line to do something or to run an errand or something, you're going to need protection. So know kind of the instant you're going to, and then comfort's always an issue. We'll talk some more about that. I like to tell a lot of beginning firefighters that pack your go bag like you're going to be trapped in an airport, because there's a lot of similarities. Deployments tend to be with the emergency services at FEMA tend to be from 4 to 7 days, and then you get time off. However, in some instances, like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, we sent teams over there and they were supposed to go for 2 weeks. They got extended to 30 days. And then it got confusing because there was no airplane seats to come back. So there were 60 days. So now I don't expect you to put 60 days of stuff in a bag, because you really got to be able to carry it. So we're going to talk first about some, after we talk about your role, we're going to talk about some ideas of what to carry in the bag. First, think about what your role is in responding. Are you operations? Are you back doing planning? Are you helping with logistics, getting supplies coming and going? Kind of predetermine what your extension role might be in an instant. And think about that when you're thinking about what to put in your go bag. So turn around and then think about, okay, what's our vulnerability? What is our primary risk? I actually have about 7 different go bags. I have what I call an approach bag that I do high angle rescue stuff on mountain rescues. I have a fire bag. I have a pickup full of livestock and agriculture response stuff. I have a man tracking bag that I've man tracked for search and rescue for decades. And now I support the young guys doing it because I don't move as fast, but I still have all the stuff in that bag. I have a hunting bag, and then I have a few other things that I don't ever expect you to get, like a sniper bag. And as Keith said, Kevlar. I have a bag with Kevlar and stuff in it for counterterrorism activities. But the reality is, think about what you might respond to and what you might need. And there's some commonalities in it. Anybody have an idea what the commonalities might include? This is Leo DeRocher said, life is not a spectator sport, you got to get in. So this question, I want to hear somebody say some ideas.
Light, fuel, warmth.
Toiletries.
Toiletries, yeah. A travel kit is really handy. There's also some other things like your prescriptions, at least 7 days worth. And if you're smart, a little bit more than that. If you wear glasses, spare glasses, because I don't know what you guys are like, but I'm kind of a klutz sometimes in disasters, so I can ruin them. But lately, what do we got to have lately? We got to have face mask, right? And sanitizer could go in your bag, and that's real important. Recently, how many masks do you need if you're going to be gone for a week or 2 weeks? Maybe you guys are different. Mine get to stinking after about day 2. So it's a good idea to have 2 or 3. And in the wildfire schools, they tell us stages so you have 1 or 2 days and then you have something to wear while you wash the other stuff. Now, where you wash it may be a totally interesting challenge if you're in the middle of mountains or something, but that's a good idea. So we're going to talk about that deployment length, because even if you're deployed for a long period of time on something, if you can maintain for 2 or 3 days and then have something to wear or use while you clean the other stuff, you can recycle stuff. So I don't know if you guys have been looking at the wildland photos out in the West right now, but if you really know these guys, we'll carry like 1 full change of clothes, we'll carry a pair of sweatpants, we'll carry 3 sets or 4 sets of underwear, and then we'll carry long johns, all of them fire retardant. So you want real silk, or you want Nomex. You don't want something that's going to light you up like a candle. Same thing with floods. My flooding thing, I've got mucks, I've got a pair of waders, I've got a PFD in that box, because if I end up going down to a riverfront and they say, get in that boat and tell those people how to do this, I don't want to be the guy that falls in the water and goes under. I do swim, but slowly. Maybe that's a good way to say it. So think about the instant, think about deployment length, and then think about this. More is better. More is always better. If you can, and you're being transported by vehicle, by foot, or by a ground transportation, or by some kind of organized things, carry more. And then we'll go through a list of things here in a minute. If you're going by air carrier, this helps a lot. And if you're a TSA pre-checked person, you can call them and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm being deployed to this instant. I will have some stuff in my bag that we need to get through. And they're going to say, okay, what is it? We're going to talk about some of those things. If you don't do that, you're going to find some of your convenience items get turned back. A good example is a space blanket. I love space blankets. They're lined with aluminum and they keep you super warm. You can use them for gurneys if you have to, but TSA doesn't like them at all, because that big sheet of blanket sets off all the sensors when you try to pass through the airport. Same thing with fluids and liquids. So we'll talk about some of this stuff. Assume when you get deployed and you're ready to go somewhere that nothing will be there. Is that fair, you guys? Scott, you've been on instance. Is it fair? You can't really assume things. That includes, you can't assume cell coverage. You can't assume Wi-Fi. You can't assume water. You can't assume food. You can't assume a place to sleep. There's a number of these things that you got to think about before you put your go bag together. So we're going to walk. Somebody have a comment? Please jump in if you have thoughts, because it isn't like I know everything. I pretend I do sometimes, but I don't. So the big thing I'm trying to get is think about those things, and then dress and equip yourself for the part you're going to play in a normal deployment. Now, you may have a go bag for floods and a go bag for hurricanes. There's little differences. You may have a go bag for tornadoes and a go bag for hurricanes. Or you may have a bigger one because you're going to be on ground transport probably that fits both. Just think about it. So let's talk about some things. I like layers. You guys like layers? You're going to be carrying this stuff, so you need it to be as light as possible. So I'm going to show you some thoughts. I've never been to a disaster yet where I didn't have to put on a regular cap at certain times. Now, I'm prone this way. It's a cultural thing. But have a cap, and if you can get one that says university on it or an agency or something, it has a tendency to turn people at the gate and think, well, this is part of the team. You want that. You want them to give you that benefit of the doubt the minute you walk up. So the staging officer turns around and says, hey, look at that. He's dressed in gear. Obviously he's part of us. Now, it's a pain in the neck to go through an airport in day glow stuff, right? Because not only do people want to ask you bunches of questions, everybody stares at you and you're already busy anyway, so put this in your pack. Instead, wear a layer of something that you're comfortable in, maybe a university thing. I like to tell people take handkerchiefs. What can you use a handkerchief for? Come on, guys, jump in.
Face covering.
Face coverings. What else?
Bandage.
Bandages, yep.
Wing.
Yep, splints, you name it. And worst comes to worst, you're going to hate this comment. You can dip it into a hole of dirty water and drink water out of the inside. I know, it tastes bad too. Then if you're going to something that requires it, take specialized gear like these carbon activated masks if you're going to be in a fire zone. They really do look like the old bandit mask. So I don't encourage people to wear them very often. If you're going to take clothing, take some stuff that is appropriate for your incident and that works in hot and cold. If you're going to be in a cold area like a blizzard, make sure you get good thermal layers and at least 2 sets. But I like things like socks that are wool smart because they'll breathe when it's hot and then they close up and keep your feet warm when it's warm. Just like the Army, I'm going to tell you, have 2 or 3 pair of socks, change them every day and wash them out the minute you take them off and let them dry. Now, if you get out on incidents and fires and stuff, you're going to see guys with stuff hanging off their, guys and ladies, stuff hanging off their pack drying that they just washed. Because you can carry it on your pack and it'll air dry. I've never been to an incident where I don't need gloves. I don't care what it is. You need gloves. If you're trying to relax, it never hurts to have, I've got a whole pile of stuff here. It never hurts to have a comfy hat. These are bony hats. They'll keep the rain off you, keep the shade off you. I'm not saying they have to have that. The glasses you guys saw me on, I've got regular prescription glasses, but these are sunglasses, but they have interchangeable lenses. Really handy because you can wear them at night, change the outer lenses. You can wear them if it gets smoky with an amber lens. You can wear them in a lot of different situations. Then have an intermediate comfort layer. You know, I like the high-tech garments, but they don't work well at fire because they usually melt. There are things called dragon fur that are like polar fleece, that feel like polar fleece, are really comfortable. Take some stuff with you that's comfortable against your skin in case you have to take a break, sleep, or you're just trying to wind down because it's stressful. You need stuff that you can be comfortable in. So you got t-shirts and stuff like that. Take this layer of intermediate stuff and have it in your go bag. It never hurts to invest in a couple sets so you've got them. Cold weather, we use a lot of different stuff, but even in warm weather, I take one of these lightweight goose down jackets. You can get them 19 to 100 bucks and they make a good layer under other stuff, but there's a really neat part about them. They fold into their own pocket, and when you're really tired, they work as a what? A pillow.
Pillow, sleeping bag.
Pillow.
Yeah, you can use them for a lot of things, but they work really great as a pillow. If you're traveling or sleeping against some rough edge, you can ball them up and put them in there. And then we used to use rubber slickers and stuff like that. And I've become a big fan and advocate of air breathable, thin, lightweight rain gear. And this is a frog tog. You put this over your intermediate layer, even in the winter with a down layer under it. This thing is totally waterproof. Weighs about as much as your handkerchief does. You can get them for about 30 bucks at most sporting goods stores. They have different colors. But frog togs are light to carry. It's really easy to do. So that I'm talking about, you've got your underwear, you've got your socks, you've got your 2 changes of clothes, and you've got these 3 layers on you. One of which is some kind of formal ID thing, so that number 1, you don't get run over by a truck, and number 2, when you get to an incident, you look like you belong there. And that's important, or at least I think it is. The other thing is the space blanket thing I talked about. I really like these heavy polar fleece blankets. This is everything from a shelter to a windbreak to drying yourself off to wrapping yourself up into sleeping. That and that little pillow thing you can actually get by almost anywhere. It works good in airports. It doesn't set off the TSA alarms. It doesn't do all this other stuff. How are we doing on time, Scott?
You're good. You got plenty of time. About
Okay.
25 more minutes.
Along with your toiletries that was mentioned, I really strongly suggest you take a hand towel. Now, oh, look at this, it's green, it disappears. Watch me disappear. Oh, just kidding. Hand towels are easier to carry than a full-blown towel. But if you get the ones like the chamois ones you use on cars, you can wring them out. You can hang them off your backpack while you're moving from point A to point B, and they'll be dry again. Worst comes to worst, you can shower, wipe yourself down with your own towel and walk out and just hang it up to dry. You'd be surprised what is not available at some disasters. It's really kind of surprising. So next thing, iPads. I really have gotten into iPads because we used to carry computers. And if you carry an iPad, it's really handy, especially if it's one of the smart ones, because you can do almost anything on it, especially if, pardon my French, you carry the right attachments. Something you can plug a USB into. I got one with a USB power pass-through. Don't forget your power cords. Please don't forget your power cords. The other part is get one of the attachments that hooks to a projector, because your iPad may be the only one on an instant command team that they're going to use for public information meetings. It's important. Then what do you need if you got an iPad? What's a basic need for computer equipment?
Charger.
Chargers.
Charger, and you just stick it in your mouth. What do you do with it?
Extra battery.
You need an extra battery, it works, but then you're adding weight, right? But you need power. You guys agree with that? You need power somewhere. Now, there's an assumption that power will be places, and it will eventually, but it doesn't mean it's going to be there right off the bat. It just doesn't. So there's different options. And one of the things I like to do is take one of these little solar-powered, crank-powered flashlight / charger / radios with you. Worst comes to worst, and now I don't recommend these for serious recharging because it takes about an hour cranking this thing to wind up an iPad. But it'll charge your phone in a few minutes, at least up to where you can get a signal. But if you've got a long deployment, remember I said more is better, the longer or the farther away you are. Oh, by the way, anything you take, get yourself some of these cables that charge like 3 different things, because you can carry one cable that charges most of your stuff, and this one charges 3 at the same time. So if you're serious and you're going to be there a long time, think about investing in something goal zero or something else. Now this on disaster responses carries in your backpack, weighs about 1 pound, and it can make you one of the most popular people at the camp, because this thing can charge 2 or 3 things in about an hour. So you'll find you fire it up, people see that over there, it looks like a suitcase laid out. You're charging everything. It'll run stuff while you're operating it, and it'll turn around, and all those people who did not remember their power cord has a bunch of attachments on the back. They'll be over there saying, hey, you know, do you mind if I plug you into your solar panel? And it really is easy to carry.
Scott, sorry to interrupt. What is the brand of that solar panel that you have there?
This one is called Goal Zero. They have about 10 different sizes, everything from one about like this up to ones that are about 4 foot wide. But you can find them in a lot of high-end sporting goods stores or online, Goal Zero. But there's other companies like Brunton carries them, stuff like that. Now I'm going to talk about some personal preferences. I like to carry a first aid kit, something small, just so you can deal with stuff. I like to carry, and this, now TSA does not like this. I like to carry some bug juice, some sunscreen, and usually some hand lotion or something. We talked about going places where you don't know what they'll have. What if there's no food? I really am not a big fan of meals ready to eat from the military because they're kind of nasty. But coyote meals and things that the firefighters use in their trucks work pretty well. But if you're flying somewhere, and TSA doesn't limit these terribly, some good power bars in your go bag is worth its weight in gold. So then you turn around and you want something to drink. Here comes a couple other what ifs. So TSA is really good about these clear plastic bottles that you can leave them empty, hang them onto your backpack, your baggage, and they'll let you through, you know. They do not like these. Raises came with their little sensors, but like, again, there's ways to get around it if you work with them a little bit. It takes some talking. In Wyoming, it's pretty easy because the 4 TSA people I know personally. So you fly out of here, it's one of the 4 same people. Now, if you go through Houston, they took my knives away. You know, that's the way it works. So, but you need something to carry water in and drink out of. You need, and if you have something that'll hold heat, coffee is a blessing, and coffee seems to appear at almost all disasters. Am I going too fast for you guys? If you email me after this, I will send you a list of some of this stuff so you can get at it. So you got there, you're ready to eat, you go through a 2-day shift or a day shift, and you turn around and they pop up this food and there's nothing to eat it with. What do you do then? Cheyenne, Brooke, you any ideas? What do you carry?
A
Camping.
multi-tool thing that
A
has
camping kit? Sporks. I like
the
sporks.
fork with the cut thing.
Yeah, a combo tool, but these little sporks, I like the metal ones because they are really well to handle. This has a fork, a can opener, and a spoon, fits on a carabiner, snaps onto things. But TSA likes the plastic ones better. You got to be careful you don't break them. But it's a spoon and a fork and a little serrated edge, and you can get them like Colorado. This is one from Reagan Adams Camp, Colorado CSU Agriculture College. Some of us sell them or distribute them as promotionals. They're good ideas to have. There's a higher end one you can get like K-Bar. Nice feel to it. Nice little thing that it does on the side. It has a knife in it. Well, you forget about that. You go to TSA and guess what? You're in one of these long discussions and half the time they want you to mail it to yourself or throw it away. And then half time your plane's just about to leave. So think carefully about whether you're flying or you're not. The same thing applies to, normally I wear a multi-tool. There's some different versions you can get that have pliers and stuff like that on them. The program that Jeannie and Reagan and I did, we gave some of our presenters a multi-tool that has a flashlight on the end of it that pops out, and it has a knife, a seatbelt cutter, a window punch, and a fire starter. TSA doesn't like these either. They really don't. But if you're driving somewhere, I got to tell you guys, when I was a deputy sheriff, I stripped myself down, but the policy was, for the agency I worked for, you had to carry your badge and ID. I spent 3 hours in a holding room in Denver, Colorado, because they were sure I had a gun on me. We see your badge, where's your gun? Where's your gun? I said, no, I don't have a gun. I just have to carry the badge. No, we know how you guys are. Where's your gun? No, the gun isn't here. So you're going to deal with some of this, but some of our Auburn colleagues that traveled with us over the years, the young lady that was doing our videos and stuff, the webinars we first did, she kept turning up with multi-tools when I had to strip mine off at home. And she said, think about it, Scott, if it's tiny, they don't care, and you slip it in with your camera gear. So you can pick up these little multi-tools here that has the 1.5-inch blade, screwdrivers and stuff like that. And a lot of times they'll pass through TSA. But always have it in the back of your mind that, you might not like that. But this, through Cabela's, is like $6. But it gives you all the variety of tools that you might need somewhere. So, am I going too fast? These are okay if you get the little ones, but you have to sequester them in your luggage. And then you can pull them out when you get someplace if you're airline. Swiss Army knives are just golden in some ways. I like to take these with me, windproof lighters. Guess who doesn't like that? Yeah. But it's kind of handy if you're somewhere trying to start a fire to get a bit coffee. I always take these one with me, a GPS unit. Sometimes you have to pack in your gear. Smartphones often have GPS capability, but I'll give you this right now. In the Rocky Mountain States, if you're trying to do GPS locations up close and personal with your smartphone, you may be as much as 3 miles off because of the adjustment. You buy good like Onyx hunting software for this, you're into about $500. But the reality is it not only gives you where you are, you can put points where you can go on from the assignments, and it gives you the landowners as you cross boundaries so you know who to talk to. And that's really handy. I'm big on these little good sets of binoculars. We have a thing called a rule of thumb in emergency services. You drive up close enough to something that you can cover it with your thumb, and you stop and you assess whether you should go any closer. And these are really handy. Little pair of binoculars. You can get a variety of them. If you don't have power when you get places, these things are handy. You guys know what these glow sticks are? It comes in several ways. They have 30-minute ones. They're real bright.
Hard to see. I have to step around to make sure that you see it right. I know it's coming.
Okay.
I hear you, Julie, but I couldn't hear what you said. And they have 12-hour ones. Serve two purposes. If you're in a bad, wet place, it doesn't start a fire. You can click it, hang it from something on your keychain and use it for a reading light. If you get stuck somewhere on a boat or in the woods or something, the really bright one, you can click it and they can find you half the time. So it's pretty handy. And when you're done, you throw them away. It costs you $1. If you buy them by the dozen, it costs about $1.50. There's other things you can talk about. When we do search and rescue and we're landing choppers, we like these things. They'll go for about 12 hours on a battery. They can be seen from about 20 miles from the air. So it's pretty handy. You don't have to have this, but if you're going to be doing stuff out in remote areas, an emergency beacon's pretty handy. If you're doing stuff on snow retrievals, we get into avalanche announcers. One of the things I encourage everybody to get and take with them is one of these small instant command system handbooks. Has a lot of things in it that gives you guides. I like to put it in a book and make a little handy book that has pages in it that you can write on. I like to put in these books somewhere, I like to put one of these weatherproof notepads. Lord only knows what the conditions are going to be back when you're taking notes. So it's important to do this stuff. How are we doing? We're 12:46. Now, as an EMT, we started making these laminated, and then we use little Sharpies to mark on them on an alcohol pad because we can reuse them. You don't have to go to that extent. It's just a habit. That's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to talk about. The big thing is we want you to remember that a go bag is based on form, function, and comfort. And don't forget your personal comfort. That's kind of what drives you up the wall when you get there and realize, I don't have anything to eat, I'm cold, I'm stiff, I need to take a break, nothing to do that with. To that end, I always carry a deck of cards. Just something to do. You can play solitaire, you can get two other people and just say, let's not think about that for an hour and a half. Let's go over here, sit down, do something to distract ourselves, and then supposedly the food will get here. But it's all about form, function, and comfort. And that starts with you understanding what your deployment's going to be like. Some of those instances can get a little nasty. Now, this sounds sexist. It is not. It can apply to both sexes and genders. When you get into disasters, people, you'll see the very best of people and the very worst of people. It's just the way it works. So when you get to the point where you, I have Onyx on my smartphone, on my GPS units, and on my iPad. When you get to the point where you start thinking you're downsized, you're off active duty, and you're in a scenario where there's people that are a little iffy around you, you're going to have to think about self-protection. So a good bulky, sharp key ring is always a good thing to have. A little training is invaluable. And if worst comes to worst, if you're in a bad spot, and it depends on where you are, I'm not advocating you carry lethal weapons necessarily, but you might carry something that could distract somebody, get them off you, and get help. So these are all things you need to think about. If we were being deployed to help a community and there was a riot and we're helping citizens there, I would be thinking about that stuff. If you're in a location where there's just one or two of you and you're at risk type of individual from the people that are around you, take precautions. Make sure you got backup, make sure you've got a call system, make sure that you're in a protected area, and make sure that if necessary, you've carried a little something with you, even if it's just that spork. Feel nervous, keep it in your hand, you know. And then we have training available, but any thoughts about what to put in a bag that I haven't mentioned?
Hey, Scott, it's your friend Reagan. I got a question for you.
Sure.
So a lot of people may not be responding as much as getting to sit at the EOC. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if you'd have with all your experience, if you'd have a moment, are you responsible for bringing all the resources you need, or will they have that sort of thing in the EOC if you're running, say, an ESF 11?
Okay, the general rule is, I'm dropping back to basics here. In an instant, you take the role until you're relieved or until it escalates, right? So assuming that there'll even be an EOC established is a huge assumption. Now, if you get called and you're manning a table at an EOC, the writing tools, the comfort tools, and possibly your iPad and stuff like that are going to be your primary thought process is about form and function. On the top to that, snack bars, your drinking cups, stuff like that. They may have some of that there. The odds are you're going to get paper cups. You're going to get food that you may or may not be compatible with. You're going to get, the other thing I mentioned about the writing stuff is take more than one pen because you don't know what they're going to provide you. The EOC may be the back of a tailgate of a pickup. Or it could be a multi-function area like I worked in Pueblo where we had $2 million investments and had refrigerators and pop machines. With that being considered, the other thing that when you get into those more civilized response assignments, make sure you have money with you, change and some money. And that's hard to get through a TSA too, but have some money. When our teams went to Puerto Rico, they had to take all the cash they needed for all their food for the month. About $1,800 bucks. But when you walk into an EOC, you're going to need that comfort and function stuff. Go back to that original assignment and think, well, okay, I'm going to be sitting at this table taking phone calls. What do I need? I need a notepad. I need an iPad. I need power. I need pens. When I get a break, I need to get the sound out of my head. So I'm taking my iPod so I can sit over in the corner and not concentrate on other stuff. I need my medications. I need my call tree. You know, if your phone's there, if you're an EOC, you usually have internet, Wi-Fi, and all those little conveniences. Reagan, you and I have both been places on stuff where we didn't have any of that, right?
Right.
So it varies, but go back to what we started with in the conversation. Think about your form, your function, your comfort, and what your assignment's going to be.
Great.
Now,
And will they have, just out of curiosity, would they have, I mean, I've only done the state EOC in Larimer County, so those were pretty sophisticated. Would a smaller place potentially have information about their county? That sort of thing?
I think we're getting there. Even like Cheyenne Wells and stuff like that. The downside is they may only have 2 display terminals.
Okay.
So the reality is that they may have the capability to get that information, but the guy that's dispatching people can't let you use the monitor.
Okay.
Which is where that extra iPad comes in. You can say, well, what's the link? And you go in and instantly you've multiplied their capability at an EOC.
Super. Thank you, Scott. Your all your experience is just wonderful to learn from.
Not all of it.
That's what I'd say, Scott, about myself.
Yeah, not all of it.
That's what I miss about not being in person, because I would hear more about that. But
Yeah, and one of the things that I'll tell you in special cases that we used to carry all the times was Vicks Vapor Rub.
Oh, right, that makes sense.
And now bear in mind, most extension people are going to be in a coordination, information, logistics, or planning role, right?
Right.
So you're going to be either working with officials or working to develop resources. But for those of us that have done operations end of it, like coordinating mass mortality disposals, sometimes the environment that you work in can be kind of overwhelming. And you know, even the smell. So from law enforcement, we learned to carry Vicks in our pocket. And when you got to a scenario where you had to function, but the smell was overwhelming, you put it on your lip and you smelled Vicks for a day and a half. And it goes back to mentality. The form and function and comfort idea also includes your mental comfort. So if you have to step out and tell people, hey, I need a break because this is bothering me, never forget your mental health. It can be bad. So, but all we really want you guys to do is figure out what kind of thing you might be involved in. Think about what you'll need in a go bag and start pulling one together. You'll find it's really handy. Most mothers of children have one anyway. You just got to enhance it a little bit.
Right.
Fathers, they think everything fits in their pockets, so they have to carry a jacket with 20 pockets, you know, but I find it working with ladies in extension, they intuitively have about 50, 60% of it already geared up. So it's pretty handy. The power thing is important and your medications are important. Having a water bottle that you really like because you may be using it for 4 days, that's helpful. I don't know, Reagan, any other thoughts? Anyone have any additions to add in? It varies from site to site.
Well, I have to do the old, I got to add the old thing about you should also, not just when you're responding, but for your own personal go bag in case you have a disaster thing, don't forget to have a go bag for your animals.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I got, if you say go bag, you know, the veterinarian here has got to talk about go bag, thinking about the go bag for your animals. And it's very much the similar things, food, medication, medical history, appropriate contact numbers, etc. But got to prepare for them too.
It's important to have your contacts and bear in mind that we're not talking about an evacuation bag. That's a whole different game. And a number of us on this call could probably talk for a day on what to have in your truck. And Reagan's well aware that when I respond to ag instance with livestock, I'm pulling a corral half the time. So it varies dramatically, but a hurricane is different. Tornado is different. Oh, shoes. Let's talk about shoes. Wear something appropriate that's durable and usable. I like vast sundowners. They'll tolerate just about anything with the exception of about 4 foot deep water. Take care of them, treat them, and wear shoes with support because you may be on your feet for a long time. If you are in an area of debris like tornadoes and hurricanes, take a pair of gaiters, you know, to cover your ankles and stuff. I like the socks that are called snow socks because they're padded in front. Nathaniel said he sprang for a battle board. Good way to hold writing instruments. Yeah. One of the other things, remember Pat Skinner, that one of our retirees, she was always advocating, take this so you don't have to show everybody your ID all the time, just hanging around your neck. But she'd carry her money in the back so that when we got on incident, she had stuff. She put notes and business cards. And I think Pat had the same hanger for about 10, 15 years, and she swore by them. And there's a good point. Most of these jackets, if you get them, will have a spot to put ID in them. And sometimes that'll get you through a gate when you need to get through quick. Chopsticks. Okay, expand on the chopsticks a little bit.
When I was backpacking, I just had chopsticks instead of trying to take a fork or spork or whatever.
You know, I weigh 278 pounds, and I'd probably weigh 120 if I had to depend on chopsticks. I do better with a knife than just stab stuff.
Well, I always had a pocket knife, you know, so I just needed chopsticks to be able to pick some things up sometimes. But Also, you know, if they break, you know, being out in the woods, you can usually just make a new set if you need them.
Kenlon.
We run out of time?
Yeah, we're almost out of time. I did
Okay.
put the link to the evaluation in the chat again, so please complete that evaluation so Scott can get some feedback.
So a short piece of trivia, my sons all carry those little jet boil stoves when we're out.
Oh, great.
And they get frustrated with me because I learned to shave off plastic explosive out of Claymore mines and keep it in a bag. And I just set that under the pan and set it off and it burns hot enough. And I don't need to carry that heavy jet boil thing, you know. So everybody has their own approach to things. So
And then there's Scott who has his, right?
Yeah.
thank you for dialing in, you guys. I hope you picked up, if you picked up one or two ideas and the fact that you need to think it out, it's worth talking. It's because what you think about now makes a huge difference when you get called up.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Scott. And again, there's a 15-minute break now, and then next session will start in 15 minutes. So
Thank you, Scott. Thank you,
thank
folks.
you.
Thanks, Scott.